Hey everyone, so today we're going to be going over The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, his first book and my absolute favorite, not just of his, but in general. Reading this book absolutely changed my life. I would recommend absolutely everybody to read it right off the bat. You don't even have to listen to the rest of the review at that point. Just go and get it right now and read it. It's amazing. So it's broken into 48 chapters, one law per chapter. You're typically going to get him to either give you a transgression of the law or an example of how the law worked out well. Sometimes both, not always though. Typically, these are built in the way of historical examples, say taking a story from Napoleon from the past, showing how he used the law effectively, or taking a example of how it was used ineffectively. So not only you get the story, you'll get a recap of the story, and then afterwards he's also going to go into detail breaking down how you can use this in the modern world in your everyday life. At the end of every chapter, you'll see a reversal of the law. So this is something too to say, look, these aren't absolutely written in stone, although some of them have no reversal. So in his words, in his mind, there is no reversal, and that is absolutely written in stone, which is fine, because if you read through the book, you'll see that that's actually probably a very accurate take. Throughout every chapter, you'll also see on the side subheaders written in pink or maybe perhaps red writing off on the side. And these are great. They're usually quotes from other books, great historians, great, very famous things. Every single one of them will back up what he's saying on the pages. So within every chapter, you're almost getting a little sub-book within the book, which is pretty amazing. It's absolutely essential for people to read this book. It's going to open up your mind in so many ways. It's going to teach you things. And one thing I really found reading it is sometimes it's going to give you anxiety. Well, why is it going to give you anxiety? Well, a lot of it is very Machiavellian. In fact, it's almost entirely Machiavellian. And that can kind of go against your morals. You might be reading through it and thinking, well, I don't want to give up my morals just to be powerful. And that's a fair statement. But at the very least, if you read this, you will understand the manipulative actions of others, and then through that be able to protect yourself from their manipulative actions. So you don't have to read this and become a power seeker yourself. All you have to do really is to read is to understand how other people are power seekers and how that will help you out. And of course, if you do try to apply these in your life, you don't have to necessarily break your moral code to apply almost any of the laws. Some of them you might feel like you do. Some of them you might feel like, oh, that's a bit manipulative. If we were to get into manipulation, look, every interaction with someone is manipulative. So we got to sort of remove the stigma from that word that manipulation is a bad thing. You know, if I'm trying to feed my baby, I say, oh, here comes the airplane. Well, I'm manipulating into eating it. The food I'm offering. Well, the food I'm offering is there to sustain its life, and it wouldn't have eaten it without that manipulation. So we can't always just look at this as a blanket statement of, oh, this is bad, this is wrong. So, like I was saying, even if you do have moral objections to it, you don't need to keep those moral objections in mind. Moral objections are subjective, basically, and like I said, all you have to do is prepare yourself for the world around you. It doesn't mean you have to take every single law of power, interact it in your life, and become a vicious, ruthless person looking to absolutely dominate the realm around you. Let's take a look through the book and give you an example. So Law 14, pose as a friend, work as a spy, is a pretty great example. You can think, well, geez, that's absolutely manipulative. It's absolutely lying to probably try to do something like that. And so that's one of the examples where, okay, I might not want to do this myself, but if I understand how other people could be doing it to me, I am actually using this law of power properly and protecting myself from it. As opposed to when you could use it, look, sometimes you're going to have to step over your moral code to do things, but if you have some type of issue with that, that's fine. It's absolutely fine. Nobody's saying you absolutely have to do what's in the book. But if you do follow what's in the book, you will find success through it. It's just absolute fact. And there's historical examples all throughout the book to show that to you. So, you might have problems with the duplicitous nature of that. I'm trying to be something and pretending I'm your friend, and then I'm actually just using that to get inside and to manipulate you or to ensure that you do not manipulate me. And look, if you have moral objections to that, that's on you. But nevertheless, if you use and apply that technique, it will be successful. So while reading through the book, you're going to have to try to draw your own moral guideline of what you want to implement, what you don't. But you will never have to do that if you're only using it in the inverse, if you're only using it to observe those types of behaviors in others there should be no problem with you at all from a moral standpoint for doing this. So I understand people who read the book and get quite anxious reading through it. It's perfectly understandable, but the information makes you anxious because as you're reading it, you're understanding the world better, you're understanding the way people have treated you, and you're also probably understanding the ways you've acted in the past to manipulate others. And that's where the anxiety is coming from, and that's okay. The world can make us really anxious, but it's much, much better to be prepared for this type of world and prepare for the anxiety that can cause you than to just close your eyes and hope for the best. That's just not going to do anything for you. Not only did this make me understand the power game a lot better, every single one of these laws is great and very useful, but it also left within me a thirst for knowledge. Perhaps that's the way the book is presented, with its really glorious way of going through history and giving you real examples and talking about all of these amazing historical figures like Queen Elizabeth, Napoleon, Teddy Roosevelt, all types of examples like that. As you're going through it and reading about these people, you can't help but be inspired by them. And that's probably, like in me, going to awaken a thirst for knowledge in you. And that's an absolute great thing. The amount of books I've read after completing the 48 Laws of Power is probably doubled the amount of books I read in my life before I've read it. That's how much of a thirst for knowledge it gave me. So I absolutely 100% recommend it. Some people have a criticism of the book, and I agree the criticism is valid, that it talks a lot in vague general terms. So you're saying, okay, you're talking a lot about a what, but you're not giving me much on the how. How am I actually supposed to implement these things? And that is true. It is a lot of a vague concept. So if you were to consider the 48 Laws of Power as a micro look at these things, then his follow-up book, The 33 Strategies of War, which we'll cover in a separate video, is going to give you the macro. So that's going to give you a much closer look into how to actually implement some of these strategies directly into your life. Of course, all of those 33 strategies of war from that book are completely different, but if combined with the 48 Laws of Power, you'll kind of have that total picture that you're not going to get on its own by reading just the 48 Laws of Power. Robert Greene has become my absolute favorite author, so we're going to be taking a look at a lot of his books as we go on, but I had to start here because basically for me, this is where it all started as well. Like I said, it's changed my life. It's gave me a hunger for knowledge and for, lack of a better term, a hunger for power as well. Okay, so that's going to be it for today. We might make another video at some point going back through this book more intensely and going through the chapters themselves, but this is just an overall review. And should I buy it or should I not? Absolutely. I've bought this book 3 times, one for me, one for my wife, and another copy just so I could lend it to people, because I wanted people to read this book, but it just felt so... You felt naked not having it. The second you borrowed out to someone, all you thought was, geez, when am I going to get this thing back? What if I have to look up something in it? It's that important of a book to me. I think it'll be that important of a book to you. Yeah, so go out, get your own copy, buy a couple copies if you want. I think this is going to be absolutely incredibly valuable for you. I think you're going to want to loan it to your friends. I think you're going to, like me, feel naked without it. And it's absolutely worthwhile. Absolutely, in every sense of the word. I think it's absolutely the best book out of all of the ones he's written that he's produced. It's absolutely the best. You're going to have a completely invaluable amount of knowledge that's gained from reading this book, and it's going to probably set off a cascading events that's going to make you want to read more. And so that's 100% my suggestion. Go out, buy it, read it, keep it, give it to others. You do not want to miss out on this book. 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, everybody.